I can't
It's got
help
a
it.
good crawl to it, Sherri.
I
It's got a real
cannot
good crawl to it.
help it.
I like
It does. It does. And we have so much more coming. So, hey, welcome to another episode of Good Fat Life. It's episode 215. I just find that so hard to believe.
Yeah.
Right?
Start.
Yeah. And my special guest today is Dr. Adam Rushford of Hands On Health Chiropractic.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Sherri.
In Brighton, Michigan. And Dr. Rushford has totally changed my life and my husband's. Right?
And you mine. Yes,
Yeah,
you mine.
and
Both of
so
you.
if you know my husband, you know that that's not just a little thing.
He's a good dude.
He is.
He's a good
He
dude,
is.
that Bob.
But he's also very set in his thought process, right? And
Yeah.
he was raised with the generation that chiropractic was quacks,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, and I was raised, my grandfather was chiropractic 1942, I think. And in that era as well.
Yeah.
And
They were still throwing chiropractors in prison for not practicing with a medical license.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
We're not medical doctors.
yeah, it's and I can't imagine life without, as I like to say, if there's one person on my desert island, it's my
Yeah,
chiropractor.
it's a good place to start. Yeah.
Right? So, but before we get started, just a couple things. We have a new issue of Good Fat Life out, which is so exciting. Every new issue is just, I think they just keep getting better as we just evolve and, I don't know, clearer. And it's cool. It's just really,
That's a
really
great
good.
cover.
Huh?
That's a great cover. I love it.
Thank you. The covers are always a challenge,
Yeah.
right? Because how do you convey with a picture what you want to convey?
Yeah. Because you don't buy a
Right.
book based on its cover, but a magazine, you definitely do.
You
have to have a
definitely
cover to
do.
grab. Yeah.
You definitely do. And in this new issue, you have an article about 4 amazing things that happen when you get adjusted. So
Yeah.
let's start there.
Yeah, just kind of, there's this huge cascade of events that happen when you get adjusted. And I just wanted to boil it down to like my 4 favorite that happen. And most people think, oh, you get adjusted, there's a crack, a pop, I feel a little bit better, and that's good. But there's so much more that happens.
Like what? So
number one, I mean, everybody thinks of alignment when they think chiropractic, and alignment gets top billing, and better alignment is one of my 4 on there. But there's way more important things that happen. Early on when people get adjusted, the biggest changes in their pain relief isn't because the alignment has changed. It takes repetition. It takes weeks and months, if not years, to make significant changes to the alignment. It's not like a patient comes in with 4 inches of forward head posture and we adjust them and it's back on top of the shoulders. You don't go from out to in alignment with any given adjustment. But with every given adjustment, we do improve the mobility. And joints need to move to heal. All right. There's big areas of your body that don't have direct circulation, all right? And your joints are those. Joints don't have direct arterial flow
I never
and
thought about
venous
that,
flow that goes
right?
in there. To get waste out and nutrients in, they need to move. They need to move. And if you're not moving, if that joint can't go through a full range of motion, that waste sits in there and can be very destructive and deteriorate the joint end plates and all the surrounding structures that go along with the joint. So the biggest change right away is just getting that joint moving. That helps the circulation, helps to flush out the bad and bring in the good.
So as you're talking, my brain's going like, oh my gosh. How many joints do we have?
Oh, jeez, I don't know.
But
there's going to be a quiz.
I'm just thinking,
There's a lot.
right?
There's
A lot. But
I mean, each joint segment in your spine has 6.
So, but to your point, it's like you don't get the issues overnight.
No.
Right? It can take years for you to develop these bad habits or whatever. And
95% of what we treat in our office, new patients that come in, it's not like they were like these perfectly healthy people and then one day they stepped off a curb and boom, it fell apart. The majority of what we see is this slow deterioration due to the repetitive stresses and the things they do a lot and positions that they hold their bodies in. And it may take years of that gray area that they don't feel those subacute issues. And then one day they bend over to tie their shoe and they just hit that tipping point. And that's our first job in the office, is to separate the idea that this pain just came out of nowhere, that this is a new thing. Yeah, the pain might be new to you, but the problem isn't. And that just the presence or absence of pain does not mean you are a healthy or unhealthy person. You know, they had that same health issue there before the pain was there. They had the same health problem. They just didn't feel it yet. It was affecting their body. It was deteriorating body. It was aging the body at the same rate. They just didn't feel it until that point.
Okay. So there's a million things that can come from that statement, right? Right. Okay.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, I know. So, but we were talking about, I mean, I brought in this book, Great Bones,
Yeah.
right? And I haven't read it yet. It was highly recommended to me, but the premise is that osteoporosis and those bone diseases don't start when we're old.
Yeah.
Right? So talk about that.
Yeah, they're on the rise. I can't tell you how many times I've had the osteoporosis talk with patients in the office. And it seems like this last year, it has blown up. I don't know if people are getting checked. I don't know if there's more, a push to get DEXA scans. But one thing that really, I was listening to a specialist talk about this on Peter Attia's podcast, To Drive, and they were talking about, osteoporosis is not a disease of the old. It starts to reflect and starts to manifest when you get old, just like heart disease starts to manifest when you get old, but it starts at a young age. And we're talking about the idea that you have a genetic maximum that you can get, all right? And that ability for your body to build as dense a bone as you genetically can create starts at a young age. And it starts at getting your kids exercising, getting your kids exposed to exercise and movement. And if you don't, they're not going to get their genetic ability to build the muscle and the bone and the connective tissue strength that they could. So yeah, what does that do? It might not reflect till they're 50 or 60, but instead of starting up here as you start to decline, you're then starting here as you start to decline. All right.
But what would that look like? It's like, so how do you, this is a question that's come up for me a lot lately, is potential.
Yeah.
Right? So human potential.
Yeah.
And it came up in a discussion like, with my PhD, we walked up Cathedral Mountain in Sedona at my doc lab, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't do that on my own.
Yeah.
But I do that with my cohort.
Yeah.
Because we do that. And so when we're looking at potential, it's how do we know what our potential is?
Yeah.
We'll do more with a group, right?
You don't, and you'll never actually reach your potential.
So that's always a question for me. So if you're talking about our bone density, muscle potential, and it starts as kids, how do you know how much exercise your kids need?
Yeah.
To be.
You know what I'm
saying?
There's standards out there, that the governmental agencies have dropped, and they're probably woefully inefficient. 3 half-hour walks a day.
Right.
That's not nearly enough to create the axial loading that your body needs. It's a stimulus. Your bone is a live material. It's not cement. It's constantly breaking down and building, and it requires a stimulus to get to that genetic potential that you talked about. How much is enough? There's something that just isn't known, or I don't know of the study that's found that. With our kids, it's a really hard balance for parents nowadays. We struggle with it ourselves because I know that sitting around playing video games and sitting on their phones is horrible for them. I know it's awful for their brains. I know it's awful for their bodies, but it's also, that's how kids communicate nowadays. And that's the world that they're going to grow into more and more. So it's finding that balance of, letting it in, letting the technology in, letting the reliance on it in, but also saying, all right, yeah, this is part of our lives, but at our core, at our foundation, we're people that moves. We spend the majority of our time in movement because that's what our body does best at. I was using, and when I have these conversations with patients, they'll say, well, I work out 3 times a week. And I say, well, your great-grandmother, how much do you think she moved by noon? Just out of necessity. She didn't have to work out. That was just life. That's just what the human genetics are programmed for. We're programmed to lift and carry load over distances, not to sit and do what we're doing all day long, So it's bridging what our genetics are built for with modernity, and it's a struggle when you have these big shifts in modernity that have happened the last 100 years.
Word, modernity, right?
Yeah.
So as you're talking about,
very loaded word, because there's a lot of great things that come from it, but a lot of huge challenges that come with it too, because we don't adapt as fast as you think we are going to adapt to it.
That's so interesting. I mean, as you were talking, I was just thinking, but I love the wheels on my suitcase.
Yeah.
Right? It just makes everything so much easier.
I blame the engineers.
Yeah.
That's our largest load of patients in our office is engineers, is because the area that we live in, there's a lot of engineers. And I always, when they ask what the problem's from, I say it's just over engineering of our lives. We made it too easy to do like the simplest things. We've engineered out challenge and little daily struggles that we need to have. Like, for example, we live on a lake community. And everybody in our lake community has golf carts. They all have golf carts that they drive down to their boat. I don't, and I'll never get one. And I have the same, they always ask me, my neighbors always ask me, when are you going to get a golf cart? And I'd say the same thing, when my legs stop working. Like, until then, I'm going to run from my backyard down to the beach. I'm going to carry my cooler down there and do what I can, because at some point in time, I'm not going to have that ability to meet my genetic potential.
And it's because you haven't done it all along.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I guess. Well, we were talking about aging things, and I find this has been really frustrating me lately, is I find because I'm older, right, people are wanting to do things for me.
Yeah.
Let me take this. Let me do this. And I'm like, no, I'm capable, right?
Yeah.
I can do it myself. And they're like, I just want to help. And it's like, thank you, I appreciate it, but I don't need your help.
Yeah.
And it's like this line of letting people do, but also I don't want to lose my strength. Yep.
There's this, we've talked about this a moment ago, and something that's been on my mind a lot is just this ideal of fragility with aging. It's been on my mind a lot after I was home for hunting season. I was hanging out around my aunt who's like 86, and she's never worked out a day in her life, but she's always been a person that's taken care of everybody. She's always had kids and grandkids in her house that have relied on her. She's always taken care. She's had mentally disabled people in her house that she's taken care of throughout the years. So she just has always been moving. At 86, she can squat, she can move, she can lift. There's no fear in this woman at all. And I compare it to patients that I have that are in their 60s and 70s that are afraid to go out if there's any inclement weather or any risk for danger at all. So that's one. And then another thing that I've been reading out a lot, there's a study that they did out of Australia. It's called the LIFTMOR, LIFTMOR, where they took this collection of women that are all 70 plus, that none of them had strength training backgrounds. And they took them through like a classic strength training 5x5 workout. And these are power.
So what's that mean?
5 reps, five repetitions, 5 sets.
Okay.
All right. And all like powerlifting type of moves like deadlifts and squats. Okay. And granted, they started, and these women were all, most of them had osteoporosis. Most of them have like kyphosis. Some of them had like stress fractures from the bone density issues that they've had in the past. And they started them all off with like broomsticks and started them off where they were. But then they continue to grow and get a little bit better and a little bit better. And the changes these women made in their muscle mass and their bone density and their posture and their appearance and their ability was astounding. So yeah, we might fail to reach our genetic potential in our 20s and 30s, but that does not mean that in your 60s and 70s and 80s that you're incapable of growing muscle and growing bone and regaining the strength that maybe you lost. It can still be there. You just have to, you got to do the work.
Be mindful about it.
You got to
right?
be mindful.
Right.
And what's the hardest part of that is these women all had trainers that were there with them. All right. It's finding the resource, because most people don't have it is a science, building muscle like that and doing that, knowing how to start at 0 and get to 100. How do you do that slowly and safely? So, it's finding the right people that can help you out with that. I would love for there to be a gym that did that. That would be such an amazing thing. I don't know of anything around that, but
opportunity, right?
There you go.
That is so cool. But I love that that there's still hope, right?
Yeah.
There's always hope.
Yep.
That you can start where you are and do better.
Yeah.
And that's what we have a big article in this issue too around the 21-day glow up is what we like to say. But genesis behind it is that people will do more and do better when they're in community.
Yeah.
because, like I said, with my hike, I wouldn't do it on my own. But hey, you want to go with me? I'll go. Right? There's something about that community and that accountability.
I always tell patients, like, you'll lie and cheat yourself. But if you tell somebody else you're going to be there and you're going to do this, like, there's a sense of shame and embarrassment if you don't do it. And
Right.
use that to your advantage.
Right.
You know?
Whatever that. Well,
Yeah.
and I love it. You said something that I will never forget is that, nobody ever says after they've gone for a walk or a workout or,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You just are like, wow.
Yeah.
Good for me.
It benefits the rest of your day.
It does benefit the rest of the day. So I love that. Let's talk about, so you have improved joint mobility.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 more.
Yep. So improved joint mobility, and with that improved joint mobility, you get better circulation. So the improved joint mobility hits a lot of different buckets. Joints that move better heal better. Joints have articular surfaces, and if you're not taking joints through full range of motion, those articular surfaces don't get lubricated. They don't get the contact that they need. If you're not going through full range of motions, you're not going to get that stimulus to the joint and the bone that you need. And then that's the third one is the circulation, improved circulation that you get through the better mobilization. All right, which is going to help the body heal. It's going to help get rid of the waste. It's going to help bring in the building blocks. Damage happens. All right. I like the concept that entropy is constant. Your body is constantly breaking down 100% of the time. And that breakdown, that entropy that happens within the body takes zero energy. It is a complete passive experience, all right? The cool thing on the other side of that is the body's continually rebuilding itself. It's continually building new skin cells and new joint articular surfaces and intestinal linings. And every cell in your body turns over and replaces after so many years. And that process takes time. It takes energy. It takes nutrients. It takes circulation. It takes exercise. That is not a passive experience. You have to put the work in. You have to give the body the things that it needs. And at the end of the day, our ability to age gracefully comes down to our body's ability to recover and replace and renew itself on an accurate level, on a consistent level, and at the right timing.
Okay. So what does an accurate level mean?
Think of a printer. All right.
Okay.
You make so you put a piece of paper on the printer. You press print. You get that copy.
Right.
You take that copy. You put it after how many times you're placing that, does that print start to change? And that's what happens to cells over time. After you replace and replicate and replicate and replicate and replicate, you start to get cell changes. And that's what aging is basically. Is that cell replication starts to break down over time.
Okay. Hadn't thought about it that way.
I think we're going
right?
to go there today. Yeah.
No, I hadn't thought about it that way. And so, gosh, again, there's so many thoughts going through my head. Yeah. Like as you're talking about full articulation, it's like, well, what does that mean? What do my fingers need to do to fully articulate?
Yeah. So a really simple practice I like to do I like to do myself, and I advise patients to do, is what's called joint CARs, controlled articular rotation. So, in a standing position with your shoulder, take that shoulder through a full rotation. Full rotation. The fact of the matter is, if you're not regularly and routinely taking a joint through a full range of motion, that full range of motion is going to get narrower and narrower and narrower. And pretty soon you can't grab things off the top shelf anymore. You can't move the way you should. And you think of most people's, the day of the life of an average spine, with how much we sit is really inefficient. And you think of what most people consider exercise is very inefficient. Most people, their level of exercise is walking. And not knocking walking, that's a great place to start. There's so many benefits of walking, but really there's no joint that goes through a full range of motion. So to think that you're really doing it for joint health, you're not. You're going to burn some calories. It's great for your brain. It's great for circulation, but you're not really taking any joints to a full range of motion.
I never thought about that before. I mean,
and it's not enough.
Like,
and it's not enough loading to actually stimulate bone remodeling and bone density.
So what do you need to do to stimulate bone remodeling and bone density?
Yeah, axial loading. You need to load weight onto your spine.
So,
right, it could be in the form of farmer's carries, where you just grab weights in each arm and walk with that weight in your arm with an engagement and with like a strong posture.
Standing up straight.
Yeah, holding weight and doing squats, holding weight and doing presses, holding weight. your classic, what you would consider a classic power lift sequence, that is your best form of bony remodeling. All right. They don't have to be scary, and they don't have to be
Real
They don't
heavy?
have to be, and they shouldn't be. If you've never worked out before, it should be a broomstick. If you've never
Yeah.
worked out before, you've never done those movements before, you're not going to be good at them. It's okay. That's where you're at. You start where you're at, and you just try to slowly add and add and add.
Okay. But I never thought about the articulation
Yeah.
before a full range of motion. I mean, you hear, you'll be in a class, blah, blah, blah. But to actually, I just assumed that walking did that.
No. If your swing gait of your knee when you walk is maybe 15 degrees, that's very inefficient.
And your hip too. It's not
Your hips just a
not
little
full.
motion, your lumbar spine a little bit of motion.
Oh my
everything
gosh.
everything
Everything
moves a little
right,
bit, but not
right.
like a full range of motion unless you got like a full sprint going and really got your movement going.
Huh.
Yeah. So for cardio, what I do really love for cardio that does take joints to a full range of motion is like a rowing machine.
Yeah.
You start in like a tight pack position, and then you fully extend.
Yeah.
You're taking your knees, ankles, hips, spine, shoulders, everything
Oh,
through
okay.
full range of motion. You're gliding on that rail.
Yeah.
So you're not putting a lot of pounding on your spine like you would be if you were running or walking distances.
I love rowing.
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels so
It
good.
does. It
Right?
does.
It
Yeah.
just-
Great workout.
It feels so
workout.
good. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So, number 4.
Yep. Number 4 is probably what drew me to chiropractic more than anything else is just the joint stimulation, the idea and the fact that there's a nervous system that lies within your spinal column, and it is affected by positions of your spine. So there's what's called your autonomic nervous system. It's a collection of things that just happen without you thinking of. And that's about 80% of what your nervous system does is things that you aren't even aware of. All right. So that autonomic nervous system is broken up into 2 separate systems, your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, and your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest and heal. All right. The fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated by stress. It can be physical, chemical, and emotional stresses. All right. It's an important thing for your body to be able to do. But the problem is most of us get stuck in it too long. What sympathetic nervous system does is it brings up your blood pressure, it brings up your heart rate, it raises your cholesterol, it raises your insulin levels or your blood sugar levels, it decreases your body's digestion, it decreases your body's natural immunity. Because you're just trying to flee danger. You're not worrying about microbes. You're not worrying about if you properly digesting. You're just trying to free danger. And what happens in our world of like constant stimulation nowadays, you hear more and more people talk about being stuck in sympathetic dominance, where their body is always in that fight or flight. Which makes it so your body can't heal. It can't replicate the way it's supposed to. It can't renew the way it's supposed to. It can't digest the way it's supposed to, and your immune system doesn't function. So one of my favorite things that the adjustment does is it down regulates that sympathetic nervous system. I oftentimes when I'm adjusting a patient, I adjust their neck. One of the first things I see just like their arms relax. And their arms drop down. And it's not something that they're physically thinking about. You just see this full relaxation of the body. And it's that down regulation of the sympathetic nervous system.
And I never thought about that
Yeah.
either. But yeah, that's just like, you just feel like,
Yeah. Now, how long it lasts for depends on your life and what you do next. It's not a
Right.
forever response, but it is a great way to just get rid of stress from the body. And by getting rid of that stress from the body's just going to function and heal and maintain health the way it's supposed to.
So then that is, as I'm thinking, is a reason why you would do that preventatively.
Yeah.
Have adjustments preventatively.
And that's where, like, if you go online and you search benefits of chiropractic, you'll read everything from bedwetting to sciatica, basically.
Right.
All right. And I always tell patients, chiropractic care is not a treatment for any of those things. We don't treat bedwetting. We don't treat digestive issues. We treat the body. We treat the body's ability to function and treat itself. All right. And if you do that properly, awesome things happen, and your body starts to heal itself, and these little symptoms tend to go away.
Because you can take that deep sigh
Because your body's
and
amazing.
line and
Your
you
body's
get-
amazing. Yeah.
They are.
It's
I mean,
amazing.
body's fascinating.
It is, and it's so easy to lose your faith in that. And I find people do, especially as you start to age and your body starts to fail you, and you start to have symptom after symptom, and you get stuck in that medical vortex where you were just bouncing from doctor to doctor to doctor. You lose fact to the idea that your body heals itself. Your body has an amazing innate potential, and you should be supporting that.
So you bring up another thing that's you see and I hear it all the time is, I went to the doctor and I don't feel better, or I there's this reliance on going to the doctor, to whatever doctor, to make us better, and not on what we can do to make ourselves better. I mean, there's a balance there, and you talked about. So that's a balance. So talk up a little bit about that, because I see this, I see it everywhere. And that's one of the things that drove Good Fat Life is how do we get the information we need to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of ourselves, right?
So disclaimer first, if there's an emergency, don't come to my office. Right. If you broke your arm, if you're having a heart attack, do not come to my office, all right? You need to be in emergency care, and we have the best emergency care in the world in our country, all right? Where we are failing right now is health and wellness care is really where we're failing, where we're struggling at, because of this reliance on somebody else is going to do it for me. Somebody else is going to save me. There's going to be a drug that's going to solve this for me. There's going to be a surgery that solves this for me. Instead of taking responsibility for our own health and realize that we drive it, and we drive it with every step and everything that we do and every habit that we choose to or choose not to do every single day. So getting in these communities, all right? And getting a bigger reason why, having faith in your body's ability to heal has got to be the basis of your health. And then triaging it out. Like, start with simple things. If you have a simple symptom that's annoying your life, it's not detrimental, it's not an emergency thing, start with simple fixes first. And if simple fixes don't work your way up the chain of command.
So where do you go? So it's like start where you are, right? So how do you find that simple fix?
All right. So
if you don't have a community,
so let's say, if you're a gardener and your plant was struggling, what would you do first?
Water it, or
water it.
But you could be overwatering.
You make sure it gets enough sunlight. You make sure it gets the proper nutrients that it needs. Start with those simple things. We need to move better. We need to eat better. We need proper hydration. We need sunlight. We need nature to heal. So get out in nature. Start with those simple things first. Start with reducing the stress of your body. Start with trying to shift your body from that sympathetic dominance of overstimulation and overreaching to more of that parasympathetic mode where your body can heal and function the way it's supposed to.
I did an article in this, and it's like rest it can be a portal.
Yeah.
And I like that idea that just to rest. Yeah. Go for a walk. You can sit and look at the sun. At the moon, whatever. But it can be that where you just shift something and to something else. And so we don't rest as a society enough.
No.
No. And I'm not talking about sitting on your butt on the couch. I'm talking about really resting.
It's resting your mind, so you're not just in that like hamster wheel of thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. I continually bounce on and off meditation, and I'm on every time I start it back up again. I just think, why do I ever stop doing that? And I'm on a great run right now where I've got about a month in, and it's just amazing. It's why do I ever stop? Why do I ever let life get in the way? And just having those 10 minutes just to shut my brain down, and just like, that's the best form of rest you can get.
It does make a difference. I have meditated every day for the last almost 29 years.
That's awesome.
But
do you use an app? Do you have
I
resources?
do use it. I've evolved, but I love Insight Timer.
Okay.
It's free, and or you can upgrade for like $60 a year.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
I just started using The Way, and I think where I've failed with other meditation apps is there's just like this big menu of different things you can try.
Oh, right.
With The Way, you start at base camp and you work your way up the mountain.
That's cool to know.
And I'm like, it feeds into like what is always my driver is getting to that next level, the next thing. Right. Where it's just like, if it's just a menu of things and I can just dabble here and there, like it doesn't stimulate my competitive brain. Where this is, all right, we're making it to the next level and the next level, and each one builds on the one. It starts with your basics of just being more mindful, and then it ends at awakening, basically. So that's really helped me a ton lately.
That's good to know, because I'll have people say, where do I start?
Yeah.
And where do I start? And when you've been doing something for a long time,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to know where do you start.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many things we can talk about. You said something before we started about balance, balance with growth. That for those of us that are like always wanting to grow, like you said, competitive mind. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's my kind of intent and focus this year is balanced striving. Like I've always been like, especially with my profession and my business and what I'm trying to do professionally, I'm always driving and driving and driving. We had a huge growth in our office this past year, and it was awesome. And I just kind of came to the realization at the end of last year that, I'm very intentional about what I do professionally, but I am not intentional at all with what I do with my family and my personal life. And it's just not fair to my family and my personal life. So it's not that I'm absent at all. I spend a ton of time with my family, but it's not with the same intention that I have with my profession and my business. So I'm working on trying to get more of that balance and be more intentional with other aspects of my life instead of just being there, being more intentional.
So, and I understand that. I mean, and that's true for so many people, right? And I wonder, that's a great ponderable for this year, is what makes the difference?
Yeah.
What's the I don't know, the spark or that drive with business versus family, because it's not any less important.
Not at all.
But there's something innate in between the two.
For me last year, it was just a huge challenge that I let out for myself to like really get out of my own way in the office and get out of my own ideas of what the office can and cannot do, and grow and get back to growing the office again and getting back out in the community more like we used to when we first started the office. And that just took so much of my focus. I was just so locked in at achieving that it like you lose balance in other areas.
But I was talking to my son about that this weekend. What is it? And so, for his thing, it's like, okay, it's family and my personal physical self for 2025. Yep. And so what do those things look like that are really get that same level of, I don't know, spark?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyways, something to kind of think about. So you have speaking of the office, you have some really cool things that you're doing. Yep. So let's talk about this one.
So it's New Year. New Year on top of everybody's mind is either nutrition or exercise. So a couple things on exercise first, and we'll get into this. And as you're getting back into the gym, if you haven't been there in forever, like don't go crazy. All right, ease your body back in there. Take your time. Start on the treadmill. Start with just engaging muscles and joints. You're not going to make it all back in one day. This is the long game. All right. Yeah. One thing that I've focused as I've gotten older, and I'm pushing all my patients over 40 to really think about with their exercise, is not trying to solve it through intensity. All right. You don't have to go 100% every time you're in the gym. All right. If you don't get that extra rep in, it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. So I try to solve it with consistency, getting those regular workouts in, even if it's just a 60, 70%. I've thought a lot about the idea of like our decline as we get older. It's not this slow, steady decline. It's a little decline, and then you hurt yourself and you can't work out, and then you have that big drop. So my big focus is just don't push my body and don't risk it so much that I'm risking injury, and just be consistent with what I do over time. And I've noticed as I've gotten into my second decade of being like a very consistent exerciser, like just how much it starts to amplify, and how much easier it gets to get the same results as you've done it for a longer period of time. All right, so that's exercise, and then nutrition's on top of everybody's mind. My favorite thing that I've done every year since I've gotten out of chiropractic college in 2009 is I've done detoxes or cleanses to start off every year. My goal for myself is to do one of these every single quarter. We're doing this as a group this year in February. It's a 10-day detox. We've done a variety of different ones in the past. Our goal with this one is to like spread it to the masses, get as many people doing it as possible. And to achieve that, we're just doing one that's really accessible. It's more affordable than the ones that we've done in the past. I think the program's simpler than the one that we've done in the past. There's not a bunch of vitamins that you need to take. Everything that you need nutritionally is in this shake. There's pea protein in there. It's a meal replacement. You still eat while you're on it. It's more of an elimination diet. So
Okay.
you're getting rid of all the processed foods, all the grains, alcohol, obviously, all the things that stimulate inflammation and immune
Caffeine.
responses. That's to be debatable. I was telling patients, it's like, if that's the only reason you're not going to do it, just have a cup of coffee a day.
Okay.
All right. But I think you can stop it for 10 days. I think you do anything for 10 days. I don't think coffee is horrible for your body at all. I stop for 10 days while I do these because I just like to show myself that I'm not like beholden to any one thing to be healthy. So it doesn't have control over me. So it's simple. It's simple in its approach. It's simple in the program guidebook that you get with it. Really is spelled out very cleanly. There's a ton of education in here too. There's checklists for grocery shopping, for filling your cupboards. There's checklists and charts in here for how much protein you should be getting in a day. There's a checklist for the 10 days for the water that you're supposed to be consuming, the protein that you're supposed to be consuming, the exercise you're supposed to be doing on here. There's a bunch of recipes in here. It's super, super easy and spelled out and holding your hand the whole way through.
This is and it's a great product.
Yeah.
And they do have lots of recipes and all the details.
Options are pretty simple this year. It's just pea protein that we're going to be using for our protein shakes. And there's just two flavors. There's an original flavor and a chai flavor, which I just tried the chai flavor the other day, and it was pretty good. We are going to have a sample day in our office because that's usually the biggest determinant for patients. Like, all right, I'm going to drink a lot of these shakes over the next 10 days. I need to be able to like them. So we're going to have the different shakes out with just, a simple almond milk, just shaken up so they can see what the flavor's like. And then we're going to have some of the recipes in here made up so you can see kind of what flavors you can combine to make them taste even better. So you're not just blandly doing the same thing.
Okay.
This one's a slow progressive. So you start off small. You start off with one shake a day and then two, three, and then you taper back down from there.
Okay.
All right.
There
is a 28-day option. If people are like 10 days, not hard enough. I need a bigger challenge. I'm a seasoned detoxer. We do have a 28-day option that you can do as well in the office.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So this is great. And we will definitely be doing this at Good Fat Life because it's part of the
The benefits are many. I mean, I do it just to break bad habits, especially coming off of the holidays. We've all, drank too much, ate too much, and splurged on things that aren't healthy for our bodies. And when you do those things, you get stuck in these ruts where you just crave and crave and crave and crave. And to take 10 days and eliminate it all, it's amazing how well it can erase those sugar cravings.
Well, and then you get from what I understand too, is that all of that stuff that's kind of like stuck in there.
Yeah.
You're
loading up on fiber over time with this.
And you're giving your body the opportunity to just get it out.
Yeah. There's within the program book, there's a couple pages dedicated to like the chemical load that your body takes on in a single day, from what we put on our skin to what we breathe in to what's in our water to the processed foods and how that accumulates in your body and it gets stored in fat. And then the 3-step process that the cleanse does and goes through to eliminate those toxins from your body. It's impossible to avoid all of them. I don't care how organic you eat and how many water filters you have in your office. We just live in a very microplastic, chemically dense environment nowadays in modernity again. And the only way for me to help balance that out is to do regular routines like this to help your body deal with it.
All right, to just take that break.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh, so much. I feel like I have a whole year's worth of things to consider and new, and we'll cycle back and talk about more of these in detail throughout the year.
Definitely.
And
yes, anybody has any questions about these, all the doctors in my office and the staff have all done these over the years, and they're all very well experienced with leading patients through these cleanses. And that's kind of the cool part about doing it as a group. It's kind of shared struggle to drive each other along. And then you've got support of the doctors and our staff to help lead you through it as well. You're not just off on an island.
And I love that too. It's that sense of community. We're going to do this together, right? And so on that happy note, I just want to say a big thank you for Dr. Adam Rushford and Hands on Health and all the great things that they're doing. And yes, you have changed my life so much. And like I said, my husband's life, which changes my life, which changes my kids' life and my grandkids' life too.
I want to acknowledge you for your kind words and like creating this and creating the team and environment that you have. It is awesome.
That's that's what makes life exciting to get up for in the morning, right?
Yep. Challenge and purpose.
It's challenge and purpose, right? And when you have a community that you just love being around, it changes everything. Yeah. Even a crappy day is a good day, right? A cold winter day, I should say, is a great day. So on that happy note, check out goodfatlife.com, and we will have all of these show notes about the fast and Dr. Rushford's information there. But we also, on our calendar, pop up all this cool stuff that's happening.
Excellent.
So thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Sherri.
We'll just say go out and live your good fat life.
Thank you.